Knowing where you are going is so important in life, and especially with dental implant cases. I'm here with Armin Joseph of S3 Simple Smile Solutions. I love what they have created. They're an awesome Dentist Job Connect sponsor. I am an enormous fan of implants, Armin. Just give our audience kind of an intro into what you do in your daily life to help dentists be more successful.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Well, we try to make it to where dental implant surgeries aren't as daunting as it seems. So I've been in the business about 16 years now, seeing a lot of cases come through. I've seen a lot of different doctors come through with all kinds of background experience, skills, and just different confidence.
Yeah.
Our job with S3 Simple Smile Solutions is to make that less daunting for doctors. So whether it's a single unit, whether it's an overdenture case, or even a full arch case, we make the process from start to finish simpler for the dentist, for the surgeon, for the periodontist, as well as the team that they're involved with. And then ultimately creates a better result for the patients.
Yeah, which is so key because these cases, small, medium, and large, what we'll get into, require proper planning. And I started placing implants in 2003 time, and we did not have any of this. Just like when I was driving my car in 2003, we had no ways, we had none of these amazing pieces of technology. But to be honest, as a dentist, technology can be overwhelming, right? How do we implement it? How many different ways can we make our work? How many different ways can we utilize this and not make our workflow more difficult? So kind of walk us through how S3 works. I'm just saying, I'm a dentist. I have 2 or 3 implants to place. I reach out to you guys and I want help. Tell me what the next step is.
Yeah, the first thing that I want to say is, our company is built on the idea that we want to impart to others what we've learned through our trial by fire through our career. I think it's important to look back and say, you know what, it's not just about making money with a business, but also how do we make each other better? How do I tell a dentist, hey doc, I saw this on a different case with a different doctor. We shouldn't be going in this direction, or something along those lines. So what we do is, number one, we like to teach and we like to kind of guide you. We're a smaller company, so we like to kind of treat you like family.
Awesome.
We'll walk you through the process and we'll say, look, maybe it's a better idea to go this direction because I saw this with a different doctor. So that's one of our biggest things, is like we like to impart that onto others. Number two is the process from submitting your case to our website, whether it's you, your staff, or whoever's doing it for you. We make the process a lot easier. So if you imagine how you order a hat on an e-commerce website, it's similar to the way we do that. So we simplify the ordering process, and then you get it to us. We walk you through, hey, let's treatment plan the case together, like I said earlier. And then we'll say, okay, now you're ready to do the case. Here's your guide. And then you're off to the races from there.
And as somebody who's seen all sides of this, even if it's just a fairly simplistic thing to review, what's the value of using a guide? How does this help with better patient outcomes, with less stressful surgeries? Let's say someone's just watching this saying, heard of these surgical guides. Do you make them on a model? Do you make them 3D? Do you make them both ways? What is the value of using a guide as a dentist placing implants?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I guess there's 2 school of thoughts, right? There's guys that just, you know what, I can just eyeball it. I can angle this thing, no problem, and I can get it in there. And you know what? There are some guys like that. I'm not going to dispute that. There are guys that can freehand and they could do a fantastic job. However, if you're like me and you're like many others in the industry who realize and say, look, I'm not as good as I think I am. I don't think I can hit that target 100% of the time. The fact is, in life, we can never hit 100% of the time. Think about it this way. A small angle off of your implant placement could result in a very difficult restorative outcome, right? Yeah. So whether that crown is coming out properly or not, it's going to be depending upon how that implant's placed.
And I'll interject as someone who's been involved in many cases that if you are not able to do a screw retain restoration, it can create a lot of what I call I'm crying inside. This is the cry inside monster. This is how I feel if I get an implant where I can't do a screw retain restoration, I've done many cement retain restorations, but the maintenance of them can be far more difficult. And then when you get into the full arch cases, it's even more important that we're able to maintain our cases, because that's the key. I mean, as a dentist who's done these cases, you develop a relationship with the patient long-term. And the more that you can put in place to go right at the surgery, the less that will go wrong later, because these patients are using these things 3 times a day, 1,000 meals a year for a decade, and you are going to need to replace screws. You are going to have to deal with teeth that are broken. So getting the implants in the right position makes all of that easier. Is that something you see from the lab side and from the guide side?
100%, 100%. And it's not just about placing the implant. Like you said, the patient doesn't see where the implant goes. All they care about is the tooth,
Right.
and longevity of the tooth. So if you don't set up the foundation to be in the correct place, that result could be catastrophic later on down the road, right? So one thing that I like to point out, so I do some lectures, I do some presentations in different study clubs and institutes. One of the slides that I like to show is actually the Tower of Pisa. The Tower of Pisa, it's a world-renowned landmark of why angles and positioning is important, right? And so the way I show that, and I know I can't really show it here, but if you think about a Tower of Pisa, you can imagine that in your mind. How many degrees off do you think that is off the world center, like off an axis? Like how many degrees tilted
I
do you
don't
think?
know. 10 degrees? I'm not sure. Many degrees off is it? It's a good question.
3.97.
Oh, wow.
3.97. That's all it is. 3.97 degrees off, right? Took them 200 years to build that thing. Is 3.97 years, 3.97 degrees off. Now, if you imagine that on a Tower of Pisa, that's much larger than a tooth, much bigger, much more monumental in terms of size and scale. Imagine what a tenth of a degree would be off with placing an implant. The study, unfortunately, is inconclusive just because there's not a good enough data point for us to say this is how much it's been off when you freehand versus when you got a case. However, in the studies that I've seen in the paperwork that's been done, it tends to be that you can be off by up to 6 degrees and be off by about 3 millimeters in 3 dimensions, right? So placing an implant is not just one direction.
Yeah.
It's multiple directions, depth, lateral, and vertical, right? So imagine that, and imagine that you could be off 3 millimeters in every axis, and you could be up to about 6 degrees or more on your placement. And the way that they try to make that study is by saying, look, we're going to do a cadaver or a model, and we're going to do a guide, and we're going to do one freehand and see where the differences are, right? There hasn't been a lot of those studies, but the ones that I have seen is approximately those numbers. So about 3 millimeters off. And that could be the difference between hitting an adjacent tooth root. That could be between hitting a nerve. And the angles could be as big as 6 degrees. That could be knocking that tooth so far out of your arch form that now you got to create a really wacky custom abutment that may not sustain the longevity of that tooth. So
it's such good points. I mean, it's also, as someone who's placed implants, you're also battling the lip, the cheek, the tongue. So these guides, a guide of any kind, making the procedure more efficient and less stressful for the dentist is key. We're talking, you can do these guides for dentists for small, medium, and large cases. Walk us through that. Start with the large case. What's a large case look like? Not necessarily cost, but like what is that type of guide that people can order from S3?
Yeah. So what we're proud of, and our signature product is actually the S3 full arch cases. So that's what we're really proud of. We're trying to showcase that. And the reason why is because the current technology that's being used for full arch cases are the stackable guides. Stackable guides have been around for the last 15 years. I know because I helped design it. I helped patent that product about 15 years ago. That evolution of product hasn't changed for the last 15 years. I left that company about 4 years ago and created what it is today, which is S3 Simple Smile Solutions. And the goal for this, like I said, trying to make it simpler, less daunting, we don't stack our guides.
Gotcha.
And we've been seeing a great result. We have these little patent pending um, conical adapters for titanium copings for multi-units. I would encourage you to look at our Instagram.
What's your
S3
best for people have described me as the most interesting person in the world I'm on? That was my aunt, but I believe her. But let's say somebody only listens this far, but wants to immediately go check you out on Instagram. What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so s3.smiles is our Instagram account, s3.smiles. And then mine is Armand Jusuf _ S3. Both those accounts will feature events, promos, as well as case studies. So if you don't have time to watch a full hour video, you could see little snippets of our product.
Cool.
The results have been great. And here's why I'm excited about the full arch. The full arch market is saturated with the same product, right? So it's just like cars. You just got more cars. There's more brands, but they do the same thing. Maybe you have a little bit different feature here, maybe a little bit different feature there. But what if you can make something different? And that's what we came up with our non-stacking guides. And what we've seen is that you don't need photogrammetry. You don't need expensive, long turnaround time guides from other companies. We make it simple for the doctor, the team, and great results for the patient. And you don't have to delay the process. So we've hit the 3 marks of technology, which is efficiency, okay? And then you have speed, and you have better quality. So you're gonna get all 3 of those with us, and that's why we do our full arch cases. Like I said, check it out. So those are the full arch cases. We're knocking them out pretty regularly. Now here's the cool part. When I was at my previous company, we were doing these stacking guides. The average turnaround time for those is between 3 to 5 hours, even with the stacking system. My best customer right now, and I can't tell all the doctors to do a full arch at this speed, but once in a while I get a text message from him and he says 55, and I go, what do you mean 55? Like, do you have a problem? Like, what's wrong with 55?
Yeah.
He goes, it's like, dude, I did your case in 55 minutes for a full
Jeez.
all-on 5 case with our
That's
system.
awesome.
Okay.
And one of the
So-
reasons, I'm glad you said speed and efficiency and awesome quality is really what the patient wants, because patients don't want to be in the chair longer. And when
That's
you're doing these cases, I one time did a full arch implant case as a resident. This is back in the olden days of 2004. It was an 8-hour day, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have the technology pieces. It was long for the patients. Fatigue is an issue. So when you can streamline a process where patients don't want to sit there and they get better outcomes out of it, right? Because I think one of the things that you can dispel is like taking more time doesn't result in a better outcome, does it, Armand?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So the old school conversion that you're mentioning, that could be 6 to 8 hours, like you said. When the stacking system came out, that brought it down to about between 3 and 5 hours is pretty normal, but that's a big possibility. Like, you got to book out your day pretty much for a full day of one arch for a patient. With us, we can do 2 arches between 7 and noon.
That's
So
awesome.
so we shorten that time, but we also make it predictable, so that when you schedule out your full arches, you're not booking out a whole day for one patient. You could say, I'm gonna book from 7 to 12. I'm gonna do 2 arches for one patient, and you'll be done. You'll be good to go.
I like this. And, just to kind of catch our audience up, I'm talking with Armand Jusuf of S3, Awesome Dentist Job Connect Smile, that sponsor that is making dental implants easier for everyone, easier for the dentist, easier for the patients, easier for your team. That's important too, your team. You make small, medium, and large guides. We just went over the full arch guide. We talk about this as the future, but it's not the future. It's here now, right? Full arch implants are here now.
That's
And
right.
do you see more of this being done on a regular basis? Who do you see coming into the space? Are you working with periodontists, oral surgeons, general dentists, prosthodontists, all the above? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna get in some trouble here, but it is what it is. But general dentists have been showing up to these full arches a lot more. And that's because the process has been made more simple.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I think I would say in the first third of my career, nobody but oral surgeons would do these full arch cases. It was, very comprehensive. It was challenging, and that's still the case today. I don't want to take that away from the complexities of anatomies, of physiology, of sedation. All those things are still in
Yeah.
existence today. But imagine doing your cases now much more efficiently, to where you're not so much worried about those things because you can get in and out quicker, right? So imagine this. I About 3 weeks ago, I was at a surgery in North Carolina, for a doctor that wanted me to be there for her first time, and I'd met her 2 years prior to this surgery. So imagine what goes on, right? 2 years, but prior to this surgery, I met her. I showed her the system, and she started doing small cases with single units, 3 units, and those kinds of things with surgical guides, no problem. And then she had a full arch case coming up, and she's like, "Hey, I want to do your case. I've never done a full arch before, but I've done a lot of your guides, and I like it. So let's do it." It took her 2 hours. That's it.
Wow.
Finish the case. Her first time, 2 hours, um, uh, uh, um, you know, straight through from start to finish. 2 hours, we're done. I was able to go back to the Stanley Institute for lunch, and then we're back to doing our everyday work. But yeah, it was really good. And then I had another doctor 2 weeks ago. It was her very first time doing guides and a full arch, and she did it, and she's like, "Hey, I have a full arch, and I haven't done guides. I haven't done a full arch, but I want to do it with your system." She did it
Awesome.
in ab- she did it in about 3 hours.
So what this is, what's happening, and your points, I wouldn't even, all dentists should be happy that more dentists are doing helpful things for patients, because there is a blue ocean abundance minded world out there, that there's so many patients that will benefit from this type of care. And it will only be a win-win when general dentists see more and do more, that they can also collaborate with specialists on even bigger cases. So dentists, we go to the dental school, Armand is kind of like the dental student Hunger Games. We're always fighting over everything. But Dental Nachos, Dentist Job Connect really creates a world where we want to bond together so everybody does better. And that, maybe your client as a general dentist is doing 2 of these a year and I'm sorry, 2 of these a month and referring 2 or 3 other ones that require more grafting. And I just think there's such an awesome opportunity for specialists to reach out to general dentists, to collaborate with them and be a resource for them. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you just a couple more things.
Sure.
Implant system wise, can you work with any system, specific systems? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so guided surgery, as long as you have the implant system that can support the guided surgery. So that means your drill system, the all the different adapters and the kits that you may have. As long as your implant system supports a guided surgery procedure, we can support it. If it's some obscure name that we've never heard of before, we can reverse engineer it. We love to do that for you. Just make sure you give us enough lead time so that we can do that, and we should be able to do that, no problem.
Awesome. And I just also want to reinforce to our audience, you can also do small and medium-sized cases with your system. It doesn't all have to be the full arch.
That's right. Yeah. So we do single units, single implants, and even if they're single implants, you could run into a lot of trouble without guides. Okay. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that because it's one implant doesn't mean that you just throw the whole thing out of the water. Single implant, you can still run into the sinus, you can run into adjacent roots, you can hit nerves, you can have bad angles. So all those things still apply. So single units up to 3 is one category of guides that we do. We call those the small guides, and then we have the medium-sized guides, and those are for implants. Maybe you have overdenture of some sort. We can support that as well.
So, I mean, it's a full service solution. One of the things I want to inspire my audience to do, and my team, is to connect with people like you, because you're doing this every day and you're a resource in so many different capacities. So people don't have to only connect with you if they're about to do their first full arch cases. It's really about education. It's about planning. I can tell from the passion you love talking about dental implants. You talk about them at dinner too, or do you take a break?
Oh man, I feel like I gotta shut my brain off after I leave the office, because I feel like I want to talk to my wife about dental implants, and she's telling me about the kids, and I'm like, "What
Yeah,
about the
yes.
dental implant?" So, no, yeah, it's always in my brain. We're always talking about it, but
I think one of the reasons is it's one of the best healthcare inventions of the past 50 years, bar none. What it does for people and their ability to chew and smile and be healthy and get their life back. You know, I mean, I've shared before, many of our patients go through hip replacements and knee replacements. And I believe they deal way better with that rehab than they do with the downtime with teeth, because chewing is very emotional, eating is very emotional. And, you know, I think people would rather sit in a chair and rehab a hip replacement than have to not eat. And what you've done is you've accelerated their path back to eating. And the dentists that you work with are just able to totally transform these patients' lives. And it's the reason, despite, I know you probably heard, dental insurance can be very annoying for dentists. It can be difficult to run a practice, but these cases represent so much positivity. I really appreciate you bringing this to our audience and supporting us. What are the best ways for people to reach out to you? We have s3smiles.com as a website. What are some other ways people listening or watching can connect with you?
Yeah, Instagram is really good for what we do, just because we're, you know, as dental professionals, we're all very visually oriented.
Yeah.
And we feel that Instagram has been our best avenue to share what we do and how we do it. So check out our Instagram is one of the best ways, one of our best resources.
Tell us that one more time. What's the best Instagram accounts?
That's S3.smiles, S3.smiles. There are other S3 out there, but that's not us. It's S3.smiles. That's our account. There's one really good video right now. We're trying to get more videos on YouTube, but there's actually a walkthrough of an entire case on YouTube. Look up Stanley Institute and S3. And
Awesome.
he did a really good documentation of one of our surgeries with him. So.
Awesome. Well, you're doing awesome stuff. People can text S3 to 215-798-9897 or go to s3smiles.com. Thanks so much for sharing with us today.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.